Hello, hello, and welcome to the Content Bite with Rachel and Lynn. I'm Rachel, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content writer, and I'm the founder of Rachel's List. And you'll all know my awesome co-host. Hi, Lynn. Tell us about you.
Hi, Rach. Hi, everyone. I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and a content creator and somebody who makes their living from using their words, which is what we're all about, isn't it?
That's right. Look, I have to say I'm really excited about this episode. This is going to be an interesting one for listeners who are used to doing the same old things to try and find work, like sending letters of introduction or cold calling or pitching the same magazines. Not that those things are bad or that they don't work, but today? Yeah, we're going in a different direction, aren't we?
Exactly. I think it's because even though those sort of strategies are great, today we're going to talk about the things that you can do you may not have considered, because there's so many strategies out there to try, and work can come from the most surprising places, really, can't it?
Yeah, so true. Okay, let's get into it. What's the first one on our list today?
Well, I get a lot of work via sort of what I call creative teams. And this might be the time to reach out to colleagues with a view to collaborating. I do this a lot, or sometimes even doing joint pitches for work. So a lot of writers team with an art director or a graphic designer, or I often team with a photographer and even sometimes stylists. And so we refer business to each other. So if I get a lot of my clients asking me for recommendations for photographers or good stylists. And I recommend people, and then generally they recommend me back if they have an opportunity. And it's helped to grow my business a lot. And it also means that I actually work with really good people that I like.
I love that. I know we've touched on it before, but it's a really indirect way to get in on jobs that you otherwise wouldn't have heard of, I suppose.
Yeah. A lot of jobs aren't advertised, and they just go back to, it's all about networks see how we go. So what's your second point?
Okay, I'm going to jump on to our second point, which is scour jobs boards. And I think this point has been thrown to me because I have a jobs board,
yes.
Rachel's List. So obviously job seekers will go to jobs boards looking for jobs, full-time jobs, part-time, or freelance gigs, of course. But I think that you can also use job boards in a more indirect way to find companies that you might want to work with as a freelancer or that you weren't aware of. And the fact that they're actually advertising on a jobs board makes you think, well, they're looking for people. There's a chance they might have a freelance budget. You can go and hunt them down on LinkedIn and follow them on their socials, see if there's a content manager or editorial director that you could reach out to and see if they need your help.
So I agree. I think that's great. You sort of see who's actually in the business of expanding and developing their content. And also sometimes even grabbing a short-term contract of a month or two from a jobs board is a great way to get to know a company and set yourself up for long-term freelance work.
Absolutely. Okay, what's our next point, Lynn?
Well, I like to follow brands I'd like to work for on social. So particularly, because I work in interiors predominantly, there's a lot of them are on Instagram because it's such a visual medium. And I do find a lot of them. And also on LinkedIn, which is, I know you're really fabulous on LinkedIn, Rach. But
no, not really.
And it's about connecting with them. You share some tips, you get to know them, they get to know you. You comment on their posts. It helps develop a bit of a profile, your profile for them. And also I feel it gets you to understand their tone of voice and some of their marketing objectives. And eventually I find that you catch their eye and they start checking you out.
And also it means, I suppose, if you are later going to reach out to them, they've already got wind of you on the socials and you're not a stranger really. So It makes it that little bit easier to weave your way into their clutches.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm often surprised when I do connect like this. People say, oh, yes, I know of you. I've seen your work. Because in things like Instagram, particularly, if I follow them and I'm commenting anything, inevitably they start following me and they start to get to know a little bit about me. And I also have a lot of behind the scenes stuff on my Instagram and things. So they start to see who else I work for. And it's a bit about developing a portfolio. You
Absolutely.
love Facebook, though.
I do. I think the whole thing with the socials is that it's not a quick fix. It's not a
Mm.
fast way. You have to build those relationships. You have to, kind of work on your digital presence, your visibility, and that's the case across the board. But I think that Facebook groups, again, is another way that a lot of people don't think about
Mm.
as ways to find jobs. They just think, well, Facebook, that's just where I, chat to my mates or,
Mm.
put some photos up of my kid from time to time. But no, it's actually a gold mine for finding work and for creating work
Mm.
relationships as well. But I think as a rule of thumb, you want to choose the Facebook groups where people engage and preferably where the promo is banned. So there's actually more of a chance to chat rather than just be assailed by people's ads and
Elevator pitches constantly. Oh.
yeah. And I would also choose groups that aren't too big, although there's obviously exceptions to that, but under 5K or 10K, or even really smaller groups can actually be really useful sometimes. I think if it gets too big, sometimes you can get lost in the chatter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you've found groups that you like, you could use the search box in the group to find posts in your niche, like content writing or copywriting or, PR, I suppose. And you kind of contribute and offer advice, answer questions on those specific posts. And if you start to see jobs coming through, jump on them straight away. I mean, I've found quite a bit of work through Facebook groups just by building relationships with other copywriters particularly, and then I've managed to pick up their overflow work, and then that's continued offline on Facebook, and we've become friends and continued to kind of share work between us. So I think it can be super valuable to get in the right groups.
I
What do
think
you
so
think?
too. And I think that doing some, as you say, some commenting, it helps establish you as a bit of a leader and knowing your subject. I think that's quite good. I mean, you've got a few that you really like. I tend to like the finder's fee, which is
Mm,
against your thing. It is enormous. It's like worldwide, and I think it's about 20,000 people. But occasionally I just go on there, and if there's something that fits my niche or my skill set, I just send an email pretty well straight away. Within an hour after that, it just is, I don't think there's any success. But I get about a hit rate of about 1 in 3, 1 in 4 for those,
mm,
but I'm pretty selective. But I do find it's quite good. There's a lot of agency jobs on there too. And
mm.
I've started working through a couple of agencies through Find a Finder's Fee, and that's gone on to other work. Mm.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we're going to put all the Facebook groups that we like in the show notes. So make sure you get your hands on those at the Rachel's List blog after
Mhm.
listening. But just one final point is we often get asked, are LinkedIn groups the same in terms of value as Facebook groups? And both of us think they're not.
No.
I think they're pretty actually worthless compared to Facebook groups. I much prefer the main area of LinkedIn for engaging and finding work and being visible so that people
Yep.
come to you. But I've found LinkedIn groups just a complete waste of time. So,
No,
yeah.
it hasn't worked for me. Sometimes if you are in a relevant group in your niche, you can see a bit of people share articles and things, and sometimes they're great to share within your LinkedIn contacts, which tends to sort of or add and send to some of your contacts, which sometimes
Mm,
works. But I think
mm,
generally they're not that great. Yeah.
Okay, what's our next point?
Well, I think personal connections. This is a bit of a dodgy one because I think that sometimes it's really hard to work for friends and family, but I do find some sort of personal connection does make a difference. And usually I think we find it sort of at least one step away. So like I just got a new client from a family friend who recommended me to somebody. And I think that's quite good. I didn't know the client, but because I was recommended, I think that made a difference. So sometimes knowing somebody personally sometimes backfires. I find there's a bit of cultural cringe. If people know me, I think they sometimes wonder, they don't realize that I can be quite good. And I'm, like I just said, my
Quite
neighbours
good at your
bought,
job.
funny that, been doing it for 20 something years. My neighbours just bought the cookbook I edited, and they were amazed at how good it was, which I thought was really funny.
I don't think people have the same sense of, that if you're working from home, they can't wrap their head around that you know, as being a profession and being a professional kind of thing, and you actually building a business. I just don't think a lot of people can wrap their head around that. But hopefully that's changing with, you know, the state of the world and remote work becoming so much more accepted. So, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I would typically shy away from working with friends too much, although having said that, I do have an old school friend and we've worked together for, it must be nearly 2 decades now, and we just have the greatest working relationship, and it's just been brilliant. So she's the exception, but generally it's nice to get one step removed from the friends referrals to somebody that you don't know. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next point, which is an obvious one, but something, and I think even journos of, you know, 20 years don't do. We like to stick with what we know, but I think that we need to think about new places to pitch to, which can open up your income stream so much more. Just stepping out of your comfort zone and thinking, okay, I've pitched to the same 5 magazines for the last 5 years. You know, where else can I place these stories, or where else can I carve up this story, and who else might be interested in it? And at Rachel's List, we created a Google Doc of Aussie publications that are still accepting pitches, which will pop in the show notes as well. And just compiling that document and looking at it made me realise how many outlets there are out there that I didn't really know about and hadn't even considered pitching to. So it was really great to see that. And I also think that something many freelancers don't consider is trade publications, which can pay quite well. And there are really loads of them out there. So if you search isubscribe.com.au, and I know you like Zinio, Lynn, and you search, say, but I quite liked iSubscribe, you search for industry and trade publications. There are 12 pages of trade and trade magazines. And surely there are a few in there that you could sort of niche your way towards. And I also really like pitching newsletters, which are put together by journalists who trawl Twitter for editor call outs. So typically an editor will tweet saying they're looking for pitches on a certain topic. And these newsletters compile the week's call outs into an email that is sent out to its subscribers, obviously. It's really a huge time saver if you pitch locally and internationally. And we'll put our favourites in the show notes as well. I know you like a local one, don't you, Lynn?
Yes, well, I use Telemedia a bit. That's a newsletter that comes out every day, and it's about sort of the comings and goings of people in media. And I often see if there's a new editor, or even better, if somebody I know has been given a new role, because I find somebody in a new role is often looking for fresh contributors because they're trying to make their mark. And I think that's really helpful. And that includes emails too. So it even takes out some of the search and the guesswork out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've used Tellem as well. I think it's a great way to build up the editors that you might not have known about as well. So you can expand again your pitching horizons.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes you forget about, just like they forget about us. I forget about editors who might have moved and they pop up in unexpected places. So that's cool. But the next point we're going to talk about is advertise yourself on your socials. Now, this is a tricky one because it could come across as a bit icky and a bit salesy, but so particularly, like, you don't want to sound desperate. Like, you know, I've recently lost all my work because of COVID-19. I'm desperate. So that's definitely the wrong way. But just saying that you've got a bit of capacity, you've had a client reschedule, and if there's anyone, you know, that you're available for copywriting, content strategy, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know about you, Rach, but particularly on my Facebook, a lot of my Facebook connections are fellow journalists and writers. So often there is overflow work. There might be somebody who's drowning in work, or sometimes somebody who's in-house, and they can't take a freelance gig, and then they refer it on to me. Because people ask me, well, when I was in-house, I used to get asked a lot about, do you know anyone who'd be a good writer for blah, blah. And I think, and I'd often recommend people, and I think that still happens around.
I have no problem with putting that kind of thing on LinkedIn or Facebook because as you say, I actually have people come back to me saying, oh, I just always think you're too busy, so I just don't offer you anything. But sometimes you're not. Sometimes you do have a gap in your schedule because the client has moved something and suddenly you've got a week open and you need to fill it. So I think that can actually be a really great way of picking up quick work. So it's definitely something to consider, but I know a lot of freelancers just hate the idea of putting themselves out there.
As you sort of make it saying, this is just, I've got a gap in my schedule, without saying I'm really desperate for work, which is never a good look.
Agreed. Yeah. I like the second way that you put it. I think that's the way to go for sure.
Yeah. So do you think we have time for one more, Rach?
Yes. Okay. Let's squeeze one more in because we're under 15 minutes, which is pretty good, but we're over 10 minutes, which is really our usual MO anyway. Okay, so I'm throwing this one in. It's using Reddit to find work, and I'm throwing this in with one caveat because I'm very new to Reddit myself. But I think in the sense of having it as another, part of your social, your digital marketing strategy. You're building up your socials, you're building up those relationships, you're building your visibility on whatever platforms you choose. You could add Reddit in as well. And the reason that I say that is because I've read quite a bit about it, and there was one specific tactic that I read about on Carol Tice's freelance writing site, which will pop into the show notes. And essentially you treat it like any other social site. You create your profile and you Google your niche and subreddits, which are these little groups that, are specifically for, different, there's so many, there's millions of them. But for me, I might Google copywriting plus subreddit or content marketing plus subreddit. And then I follow the Reddit groups that come up. And then what you do on Reddit is you start building up your karma on the site, and you can see it point up. It's like little bing, 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 bing. Anyway, I don't have much karma, but yet.
Not yet.
You can build it up by, again, doing the same kind of thing you do on other social platforms, engaging, commenting, sharing value. And then the way that this strategy works is once you have built up enough karma, I think it's something like 500, you can start to do bigger posts and share more value, address pain points of people that were in the group, and start to get more visibility and get more notice. And the article I was reading saying that can bring actual good work offers your way because people start to think, oh, they've got a lot to offer. But I'm not there yet, so I'll have to report that back on that one.
Yeah, no, it sounds really, no, I haven't. I know it is the subreddits I hear is a great way of getting to know specific topics. So I think it's really interesting. Obviously that's on my to-do list this week, Rach. I'm going to have a good look. So hopefully we've shared a lot of interesting tactics that you might not have thought of. And because I think that brings us to the end of our episode.
It does. Thanks, everybody. You've been listening to The Content Bite. Please do drop us a rating and review if you like what we do, as it helps other freelancers find us. And new reviews make us very happy, don't they, Lynn? We just ring each other and we're like, oh my God, we got a new review. We get very excited. So
we do. We love a review. Okay, well, thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.